Within each of us lives a story capable of touching the soul of a stranger. Today's story is a revelation from the heart, where tears of pain and joy have combined. A story that will take your breath away and at the end, make you smile and believe in miracles again. We begin. It was Sunday evening. Masha finished washing the dishes, wiped the stove, and exhaled. Well, that's it. Fusion could go iron her husband's shirt for tomorrow. After all, he was her big boss. The editor of a well-known magazine in town. He always had to be dressed to the nines. Masha didn't mind at all that 24 pretty women, every single one of them, worked under his supervision. Victor loved only her. She ironed his shirt sleeves and reminisced. They met at a student party. Masha was a fifth-year journalism student at the time. He and a friend happened to be at a party celebrating some kind of holiday, something like All Saints' Day. A strange gathering, in short, but everyone was really having a good time. A small nightclub, a fun program. At some point, Masha noticed a strange guy staring at her. She didn't immediately decide to tell her friend. "Oh, it's Stepanov," Nastya whistled in surprise. "Stepanov himself is here having fun with us." "Nastya, enlighten me. Who is Stepanov?" Masha raised her eyebrows in confusion. "Well, you're a country bumpkin," her friend laughed. "That's Viktor Stepanov, a journalist. My God, remember his newspaper articles. The teacher used to give us examples of his article headlines." And that same Stepanov, quite, Masha remembered and stared at the man with interest. He, noticing her glance, immediately moved in their direction. Came up, smiled, asked her to dance, and everything started to happen between them from that evening. At first, Masha was interested in talking to him purely out of professional interest. Victor really was a very good journalist. He gave a lot of practical and understandable advice on how to conduct interviews, how to collect news material. And then Masha's heart began to beat anxiously. She realized that she was head over heels in love with Victor. However, the gleam in his eyes also betrayed Masha's obvious interest. A couple of months later, Victor introduced the girl to his mother. Irina Eduardovna was a tough, abrupt woman. She looked appraisingly, as if she were burning through with an X-ray. At their first meeting, she was mostly silent, only occasionally asking Masha questions. Who her parents were, where she studied, where she lived. But Masha passed this peculiar interview with flying colors. Of course, upon hearing that Masha's parents were dead, killed in a car accident, the woman shook her head and pursed her lips. But realizing that this happened when the girl was already studying at university, she even sighed sympathetically. And when she learned that Masha lived in a 3-room apartment in the city center, she smiled approvingly. Not a bad girl and educated. "Don't you think, Milochka, that you'll be competing with my son?" Irina Eduardovna asked, just in case. "What do you mean?" Masha only laughed. "I'm not a competitor. Besides, I'm more interested in photojournalism." "Well, yes, the woman nodded. After meeting her, Masha was left with mixed feelings. It seemed like we were just chatting with Irina Eduardovna, but it was like I was taking an exam. And passing. "Oh, my mother," Victor laughed later as they strolled through the city at night. "And Rebella looks like a schoolgirl in front of her." "Well, there's a bit," Masha admitted. "I forgot to tell you that she's a former judge. She retired 2 years ago." "You should have warned her," Masha muttered and smiled. "And overall, I liked your mother. It's obvious she loves her son very much. And she wouldn't give up her treasure to just anyone," Victor laughed. "And she liked you, that's a fact. You'll see, you'll become." But he and Irina Eduardovna never became friends. But at their wedding, the woman somehow softened and even called Masha daughter just once. There had been a time, though, when she'd spoken to the girl almost maternally, but Masha didn't want to remember that now. Masha and Victor had married right after the girl graduated from university. And then she'd gotten a job as a photojournalist at a magazine. The best and most famous magazine. Victor had joked back then that his wife had outdone him. And a few months later, he'd come to work at that same magazine. First as an art editor, and a year later, the publishing house's management had promoted him to editor-in-chief. Working under her husband's leadership, Masha had an easy time of it. They'd go to the editorial office together, return home, and at home, the only conversation was about work. And it wasn't stressful. On the contrary, they always had something to talk about, to argue about. No, they never argued. They just argued. Masha turned out to be a very capable journalist. But everything changed when, 3 months into her pregnancy, the doctor told her she had to make a choice. The pregnancy was complicated. There was a risk of miscarriage. You need to go to the hospital and be under our constant supervision, the doctor announced to her at one of the appointments. How can I go to the hospital? Masha was confused. I have work. A photo shoot is tomorrow. In a week, a photo shoot is planned with a capital philanthropist at the orphanage. The children already know that people from the magazine will come to take their pictures. Then choose either your child or the minute impressions of children who are strangers to you. My child, Masha decided. Yes, she understood that Vitya would be unhappy, but what could she do? After all, it was his child too. Victor surprisingly calmly took this information. He even scolded her for doubting. We'll find someone to send, silly girl, Khan says. Yes, at least you're Nastya. Her friend Nastya also worked at the same magazine. Masha managed to get her a job when Victor became editor-in-chief. Yes, there was nothing to worry about, but Masha was a little annoyed that such major projects were passing her by. But the child came first. She had to lie in the hospital almost constantly, and at times it was unbearable. But she knew what it was all for their daughter. The doctor said that she and Vitya would have a girl. How much longer must I stay here? She asked the doctors. Let me go home, at least for a week. I miss my husband. They just threw up their hands. What husband? And by the 20th week, they forbade Masha to get up at all, always lying down. And she wasn't supposed to be disabled, but she couldn't get up. She would have gone completely crazy if Victor hadn't visited her after work. Sometimes Irina Eduardovna would come by, Nastya would run in, and everyone would say in unison, Masha is such a good girl, a steadfast tin soldier. But at 22 weeks, despite the doctor's best efforts, Masha's hopes were shattered. She began bleeding. An emergency cesarean section was required. Masha will never forget the moment she lay on the table under epidural anesthesia while the doctors dug around in her belly, then pulled out something tiny. She's alive, Masha whispered, realizing the nurse was carrying her baby girl away. Why isn't she screaming? Because she's still very small, the surgeon answered her. She's alive, don't worry. Now they'll put her in a cradle, and she'll continue to grow there. And you lie. Masha slept for almost a day after the operation, and when she came to, she tried to get up and immediately screamed in pain. A nurse came running and started scolding her. Why are you jumping around like a goat? What if the stitches come apart? I wanted to know how my daughter is, Masha whispered tearfully. Yeah, honestly, she's heavy. How could she not be when she was born weighing 700 grams? Deeply premature, but alive. Alive. Calm down. We have good doctors in the premature baby department. Your girl is coming out. And Vitya knows. Vitya's husband knows. He was eager to see you today, but they wouldn't let him. You don't have time to visit now. He'll come tomorrow evening. Oh, darling, how he treated you. He loves you. I was so worried about you, about your daughter. It's okay, everything will work out, you'll see. The next day, Victor came to see Masha. And not alone, but with his mother. Irina Eduardovna was gloomier than a thundercloud, just sighing and shaking her head. Victor reassured Masha, saying that their girl would definitely emerge. Name her Veroshka, Masha, whispered, wiping away her tears. But you wanted Yulia to be like your mother. Victor was surprised. No, Vera, Masha answered firmly. Verochka. Vitya, I've also thought about christening her. They say we can call a priest here. Maybe God will help our little one cope. He will give her some. Come on, Victor shrugged. No, you're completely brainless, Irina Eduardovna. What kind of Christinas can there be now? The child is deeply premature. You can't even go to him so as not to disturb him. And you're gonna call a priest? And why? You're both educated. People should understand that this is a huge risk. Well, they're calling, Masha responded timidly. That's not what I mean, Irina Eduardovna exclaimed. The huge risk is that this child will even be capable of functioning. Just think, only half a kilogram. What's this anyway? Not half a kilo, but 7 grams, Masha objected. It makes a little difference. It's the size of a palm now. Masha, just think what kind of child this will be. Even if they bring him out, blind, maybe deaf, with cerebral palsy. Oh, it's scary to even imagine. Children, stop going crazy. You don't need this child. Better yet, write a refusal and be done with it. Masha and Victor stared at their mother in horror. What is she talking about? This is their child. This is my daughter, Masha. Masha answered quietly but firmly. And I will take her, no matter what. Mom, you're really saying something wrong, Victor muttered. How is this possible? Our daughter is fighting for her life there, and you? Oh, forgive me, Irina Eduardovna came to her senses. I don't know what I'm saying. Yes, let's hope. We'll have a siege Vitenka. Let's go. They were already at the exit when Masha called out to her husband. Vid, will you find out about the priest on duty? Pay whatever is due there. Of course, dear, don't worry. I'll arrange everything. Her husband nodded in response. They left him, and Masha sank into some kind of darkness. She was very tired. The next day, Victor couldn't come to her. Too much work, he said. And they weren't letting the little girls in. They promised, but so far they weren't letting them in. Masha quietly left the room, deciding to ask about the priest herself. Yes, the nurse nodded, and for some reason lowered her eyes. We'll invite the priest soon. But for now, go and rest. And the next morning she learned the worst. The doctor came and said that her daughter's heart had stopped. It was expected. Very low birth weight. Only 22 weeks. The organs are not yet formed, he explained. It happens, understand. We are not gods. Masha only cried. Yes, she understood everything and hoped until the very end that her little girl would survive. But the miracle didn't happen. Her heart was torn with pain when she realized she'd never seen her daughter alive. They wouldn't let her in. Only then in the operating room did she faintly remember the nurse carrying away some small red lump. Her little girl. She'd never held her to her chest, and would never be able to do so again. And the dead didn't show her. The doctor said Masha couldn't watch this. Volta was tearing her apart from the inside. Masha spent the rest of her days in the hospital in a daze, lying and sleeping. Victor and Irina Eduardovna came, both of them also sincerely worried. Masha was surprised then by how warm and attentive her mother-in-law could be. Daughter, everything will be fine, she said, stroking her head. Daughter, just like Mom used to say. And now 6 years have passed since then. Masha was grieving the loss of her child, as she was never allowed to say goodbye. By the time she was discharged, Vitya had already buried his daughter. As she sobbed on the small mound of the city cemetery where her husband had brought her after much persuasion, Irina Eduardovna was also there, stone-faced. Nothing. Have another, was all she said as they walked from the cemetery. And it seemed to touch Masha's heart. She couldn't have another child. There were complications after that pregnancy. Masha lived through her pain day after day and couldn't get over it. She wanted to return to her profession, but it was as if a light bulb had burned out inside her. Her hands were drooping, and she no longer found interesting angles. All her characters seemed faceless to her. In the end, Victor, looking at his wife's unsuccessful work, asked her to leave. Stay at home and take care of the house, he said. And Masha agreed. They lived in her late parents' apartment, where she'd spent her entire childhood. Yes, even the walls of home help. She threw herself into household chores, laundry, cooking, cleaning, shopping, Her dreams of a career were dashed. But Masha wasn't worried. Now she lived solely for her husband's career. And Victor was a real pro. Under his leadership, the magazine became even more popular in the city. Victor and Nastya, who occasionally visited her friend, talked about the editorial work. Masha listened attentively, and most of all, she was interested in Victor's management. Victor is the best editor, Nastya smiled. Oh, Masha, you're lucky with your husband. I know, Masha nodded. She was happy to hear that Vitya was doing just fine. And she was also happy about something else. In all these years, Victor had never given her a reason to be jealous, even though he practically worked in a raspberry patch. There were so many pretty girls in the editorial office, and he only looked at Masha and hurried home in the evenings. Of course, sometimes he was late, but that was nothing. Masha understood that the editorial office had irregular working hours. There were meetings, presentations, and then the magazine had to be submitted to the printers. And she was also very grateful to her husband. After that unsuccessful pregnancy, she hadn't been able to give Victor a child. Yes, the doctors had been right, but he had convinced her that they were fine together. Irina Eduardovna, when she came to visit, always said how lucky her son was. His wife was so caring, but she treated Masha more formally than as a family. And the young woman didn't care. Her mother-in-law was a stranger to her. What could she do? But everything was fine with Vitya, and that was the main thing. That Sunday evening, all these memories came flooding back. Masha didn't even notice how she ironed Vitya's shirt, then his suit, and a few sheets at the same time. Her husband was sitting at his laptop and writing something, each doing their own thing. The phone rang, shattering the silence. Masha winced as if waking from a memory. Victor picked up his cell phone and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Mom, why is she so late? He said out loud and lifted the receiver. Yes, hi. What? Yes, I can. Victor's expression showed some confusion, and Masha noticed it. She was surprised, but even more surprised when her husband waved her off as if to say, I'll go talk to Mom, and went into the bathroom. Masha usually didn't listen to Victor's conversation, but now her curiosity was piqued. Why was this mother-in-law calling so late? Especially so she wouldn't be listening. The woman walked to the bathroom door and rested her head. Victor turned on the faucet, so it was difficult to understand what the son and mother were saying. But Masha listened in. You said that was it? What's the problem again? No, I'm not angry. Masha tensed up in the bathroom. What kind of problems were these that she didn't know about? Strange. Actually, she and her husband have no secrets from each other. And how much do you need? Victor's voice was heard again. What nonsense. Maybe this isn't my child at all. And he whispered something heatedly. Masha couldn't hear, but it was enough for her. She froze in horror. How could Victor have a child? So he was cheating on her. After all, he was talking openly to her mother. She, the fool, put on rose-colored glasses and lives like a blissful woman, completely convinced that her husband loves her while he's got a child somewhere else. Masha returned to the room on weak legs. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. But Victor said that phrase, my child. True, he doubted it, but that was secondary. The main thing was that he had cheated on her. Masha's first impulse was to throw a fit at her husband as soon as he got out of the bath. But what would she charge him with? Supposedly she heard it. He'd wriggle out of it, start convincing her, swearing, and then go into hiding. And then Masha would definitely never know the truth. She had to think of something else. Victor came out of the bathroom, looking lost. Saying he was going to bed, he kissed Masha and disappeared into the bedroom. Do you have to go to your ninth tomorrow as usual? Masha asked him, surprisingly calmly. No, I have to go earlier, Victor responded. I still need to stop by Mom's. What's wrong with her? Why did you call? Masha asked, trying to appear indifferent. Yes, she ran out of medication, asked me to bring her some. Masha only cooed in response. She lay all night, listening to her husband's steady breathing. He was asleep. He wasn't the least bit ashamed. But then again, what did she want? He was a healthy man. He needed to procreate. She was the one who was flawed. Masha quietly sobbed, feeling sorry for herself. But was this even possible? If he'd had another woman, if they'd had a baby, he'd have told her so. At least that would have been more honest. But now he was sleeping with her, living under the same roof while diving into another's bed. How disgusting. As she drifted off to sleep, Masha decided to follow her husband the next day to see where he'd go early in the morning. As soon as Victor closed the door at 12:30, Masha immediately tore off her apron and ran out into the hallway, then out of the apartment. There had been no plan as such. It had all been pure improvisation. She literally jumped into the car of the first taxi driver she saw right behind that gray SUV. The elderly man chuckled knowingly and followed her husband's car. "Who are we following?" Pawn asked cautiously. "Isn't it clear?" Masha asked sharply. "What's unclear? You don't trust your husband." Masha didn't answer. She just looked at Victor's car ahead. Masha realized they were going in the opposite direction of town. Exactly. Now, it's not like they're going to see Mom. Irina Eduardovna lives in the neighboring district, and they've already crossed the river. Soon, Victor's car stopped at a small park. Masha asked the driver to drive very slowly. And then she saw Victor approach a young woman, talk to her for 2 minutes, thrust an envelope into her hands, and walk away. He gave the money to his mistress. Masha thought angrily at her child. She got angry, and then she began to cry. "Hey, honey, what's wrong?" The elderly driver lightly touched her shoulder. "Why are you crying?" "Nothing's clear yet. Well, your husband met some girl, but it doesn't look like they're in a relationship. He just handed over some envelope. Maybe she pinned it down and is asking for money. Haven't you thought about that?" "Even if that's the case," Masha cried out, "I understand perfectly well why they have a child." The man scratched his head. "Well, then you need to ask your husband directly and not cry and spy on him." "Yes, you're right," Masha sighed, wiping her tear-stained cheeks. "I'll do that." But once home, she decided to act differently. She needed to ask Nastya if she knew anything. Maybe there were rumors about her husband at work, and she didn't want to tell her. "What, mistress?" Her friend widened her eyes. "Masha, no. Of course not. No one had even thought of that. Vitya only loves you." They were sitting in a cafe near the editorial office. Masha called her friend during her lunch break to ask her straight out if she decided not to tell him about her husband's encounter with the stranger for now. What if Vitya really had gotten into some kind of trouble, and she'd only set him up by telling him what she saw? And you could even think of such things, Nastya wondered. Victor is like a wall. No woman's charms work on him. There are girls who have made eyes at him, but he never, do you hear, never even smiles suggestively at anyone. Victor's a very decent person. You shouldn't be so. And where do you even get such thoughts from, anyway? I don't know, Masha shrugged. It would have just seemed that way, I guess. Exactly, it seemed that way, her friend assured her, heatedly calming Masha a little. But then who was that stranger in the park? In that conversation she overheard in the bathroom. What child was he talking about? These thoughts still troubled Masha, but she decided to keep quiet for now. Time would tell what happened next. She would simply observe. A week passed, and everything seemed unchanged. One day she returned home from the store, made dinner for her husband, and lay down. From all the worries and thoughts that had tormented her all this time, she seemed to fall into some kind of abyss, and fell asleep in an instant. She woke up late in the evening. The streetlights were shining through the uncurtained window. Masha even closed her eyes and stretched as if she had slept well. And what would she do tonight? And then she looked around anxiously. Where do you live? It's already night outside. She was about to get up, but suddenly heard her husband's voice from the hallway. He was talking on the phone again, quietly, but everything was perfectly audible. Yes, she's asleep. I just saw. Masha immediately pretended to be asleep, but in reality she was listening with all her ears. I don't understand how she could have found out. Nastya, don't be hysterical. We've already talked. Nothing will change at work. We'll continue to date the same way. And Masha, she's just been watching too many stupid TV shows. Yes, right. And I'm talking about the same. She's sitting at home bored with nothing to do, so she made up this story. She doesn't know anything about us and never will. Bye, darling. You know I can't divorce her yet. I need her to register her apartment in my name. No, of course, I can buy a new one for you and me, but that's a lot of money. Why spend it when there's such an option right there? Victor fell silent and peered into the room. Making sure his wife was sleeping peacefully, he closed the door more tightly and quietly continued the conversation. Then Masha, opening her eyes, listened to what her husband was saying and was horrified. It turns out she's been living with a monster all these years. I've already made arrangements with the doctor. Yes, he gave her some medicine. I'm already mixing a little bit into her tea. She's still asleep. Apparently the medicine is already working. And she blurted out about the mistress because the medicine was starting to work. The doctor said Masha would soon start having mental problems. Hysterics day after day, and then it's done. I'll demand an examination, and they'll declare her insane. Nastya, don't worry, she'll then be securely locked up in a clinic. He paused, listening to something, then chuckled. Yes, I made it all up. And you have talent. Victor was saying something else. No, he wasn't even saying it. He was purring with his mistress. Masha, of course, realized he was talking to her, specifically just as she realized that her best friend was the homewrecker. The one who was mean behind her happiness cried insanely. Masha looked at him with intelligent eyes and lied, and then told Victor everything. Thoughts of that stranger in the park faded into the background or even third place. But Masha hardly thought about it at all. She decided that the woman simply knew about Victor's plans and was extracting money from him. And the child? No, she must have misheard it. Or misunderstood. Now there was another problem. Terror gripped her soul. Her husband was plotting something vile against her, all the while smiling sweetly and kissing her in the morning. Drive her crazy, take away her apartment. Well, we'll see who wins, Masha thought to herself and closed her eyes and fell asleep again. Perhaps the drugs Victor had mentioned had already begun to work. In the morning, Masha opened her eyes. The first thing she remembered was the conversation she'd overheard yesterday. Lord, there were so many overheard conversations in her life. But there was nothing she could do. Nastya, Vidya, the people closest to her were traitors. No one could be trusted anymore. Victor peered into the room. Hello, darling. He smiled so sincerely, it was hard to believe he'd been talking about her yesterday. Good morning, Masha yawned, trying to appear. Indifferent, you're such a Sonia. Victor kissed her temple. I came home yesterday, you were sleeping. I didn't wake you up, I think you'll get up on your own. And you just dozed off on the couch until morning. Why aren't you sick? I don't know. Masha closed her eyes so as not to see his feigned concern. I feel a bit weak. A doctor, maybe? Victor was already reaching for the phone. No, I'll just lie down and rest. I'm sorry, darling. I probably won't be able to make you breakfast. I'll make myself some coffee. Get well soon. Victor kissed her and headed for the door. Then he turned around. Mashenka, if you feel worse, call me. Okay. Masha nodded silently in response and covered herself with the fluffy blanket. It was hard for her to believe that her Victor was not at all the man he claimed to be. But she had heard it all yesterday. And Nastya, the snake. Now she couldn't trust anyone. She had to decide everything herself. As soon as Victor closed the front door, Masha jumped up from the sofa. The first thing she had to do was find out what exactly her husband was adding to her tea. After all, she had slept too long. Something strange. Adds to tea. That's what he said. So, drops. Or powder. Masha searched the kitchen, the bedroom, the living room, Victor's office. Nothing suspicious. So he carries it with him. She spent the whole day lounging in bed, reminiscing about her life. How had it happened that she, a promising photojournalist, had suddenly become a housewife? Yes, the loss of her child had devastated her. But then why had she been unable to recover for so many years? Was it because her beloved husband had instilled in her that she was worthless, incompetent, and destined to cook soups, iron his shirts, and patiently wait for her husband to come home from work? That's exactly how it turned out. Yes, when after the hospital she was left alone with her grief and sank into despondency, it was Victor who convinced her that she needed to calm down, take a break from work. And she listened, calmed down. But what she should have done was force herself, reluctantly drag herself up by the shoulders and go, distract herself, do what she loved. And now she'd forgotten almost everything they taught her at university. Just recipes, the secrets of home comfort, and the occasional TV series in a moment of relaxation. Masha had dissolved into her husband, lived for his successes, was proud of him. And what happened in the end? He found a replacement for her. And this after everything that had happened to them. Masha realized she had to act. No, a fight wouldn't solve anything here. Masha decided to pretend she was still sleepy and listless. That evening when Victor came home, he was surprised to see his wife asleep again. Nothing had been prepared for dinner, and the bed in the bedroom had still not been made that morning. Masha was still on the sofa in the living room. He gently touched her shoulder, placing his palm on her forehead. Asleep. He left the room and dialed someone on the phone. "The drug isn't working as you promised." Masha heard Victor's voice. "She's been sleeping for days." "No, I'm doing as you told me. I don't need this. I explained it clearly. You should be at least insane, but here, she's turned into a vegetable." "Fine. Come over." He went into the kitchen and drank tea there, making himself dinner while Masha waited. Someone was supposed to arrive. But who? He clutched the recorder, which she had thoughtfully brought with her, tightly. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. Masha heard an unfamiliar male voice. Victor was saying something. He was clearly disconcerted by the whole situation. "Here," said Victor, opening the living room door. "He's been sleeping for 2 days. It's strange," a nasal male voice drawled. Masha so wanted to open her eyes and see this man. But she overcame herself and only carefully pressed the button of the recorder she was holding. The fluffy blanket hid everything. "The drops I gave you couldn't have had such an effect unless you violated the dosage," the stranger said thoughtfully. "Exactly 10 drops, just like you said," Victor exclaimed. "I don't understand anything. Although at first there may be some sluggishness." "Wait, are you sure she doesn't hear us?" "No, she's asleep, you see." Masha was breathing evenly, sleeping, even smiling slightly in her sleep. "Yes, she really is sleeping. Maybe I should call an ambulance." "And what will I tell them?" "My wife is sleeping." "They'll take tests from her, and they'll clearly find this drug. You'll say that she took it herself. You have nothing to do with it. Although you're right. The question will arise of where she got this drug. Yes, I think everything will be fine. Soon everything will go according to plan. Don't worry. In about a month, when the drug accumulates in her system, she will become violent and even uncontrollable." The stranger approached the sofa and took Masha's hand to count her pulse. The woman happily noted to herself how well she was holding the recorder in her other hand. But at the same time, she understood that she could no longer pretend to be asleep, so the woman, she shuddered when the stranger touched her and opened her eyes. A thin man of about 50 was looking at her, so disgusting, with a thin mustache and dull, curly hair. "Mashenka," Victor exclaimed. "I even had to call a doctor. You've been so lethargic for 2 days." He ran up and hugged her. Masha barely managed to hide the recorder under the pillow. "Vitya, what's going on?" she muttered, pretending to have just woken up. "I thought you were sick. That's why I called the doctor." "An ambulance or what?" Masha stared at the man in confusion. He was clearly nervous. "No, what are you saying? I'm doing it privately." "Yes, Masha, I'll call the doctor from a reputable clinic," Victor explained hastily. He didn't call an ambulance right away, or they'd make a big fuss. A ton of tests and all that. They'll take you to the hospital, too. And I know how much you hate hospitals." "Yes, you're right," Masha yelped. "I'm fine. I'm just apparently really tired." "Yes, darling, you're not taking care of yourself at all with all these household chores." "That's right. You need to rest, too." Victor gently stroked her head and seemed like such a caring husband, and Masha would have believed him before. But not now, when she's heard so much. "I think I'll go," the man coughed tactfully. Yes, I'll see you out," Victor called out. They whispered something in the hallway. Masha heard only once. 10 drops. She shuddered. Yes, her husband was deliberately destroying her. But now she knew everything was going on, and it was unlikely that everything would work out the way he wanted. Victor returned, sat down next to Masha, hugged her, and looked tenderly into her eyes. "Baby, maybe I should bring you some tea," he suggested. Yes, Masha agreed. "But let's go to the kitchen." In the kitchen, she realized Victor was trying to distract her, so she wouldn't see him making tea. He sent her straight to the bathroom to wash up after sleeping. Another time, Masha wouldn't have paid attention. In fact, she was getting ready herself. But this time, she knew there was a reason her husband was sending her out of the kitchen. A storm raged inside. He thought it was because of the drops that his wife was sleeping all the time, and still continuing her dirty deed. But she also knew what to do. "Oh, tea." Masha smiled, entering the kitchen, seeing the set table. "Darling, I'm sorry, I didn't cook anything today." "Oh, it's nothing," Victor smiled. "I made some sandwiches, candy, fruit. That's enough for us." "Okay," Masha nodded, and then pretended to remember something. "Darling, can you bring me the phone from the living room?" "Are you waiting for someone to call?" He raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Yes, Nastya might call," Masha thought on the fly. Victor just shrugged and went to get the phone. Meanwhile, Masha had managed to change the cups. Let him drink his own crap. He'd obviously given Vitya another 10 drops. Victor returned with her phone. Then they drank tea and chatted about trivial things. Oh, how Masha wanted to break down to tell him everything to his face, everything she knew and guessed about her husband. But she held back. She had another goal. "Darling, do you still love me?" she asked suddenly, casually. "Of course." Victor even choked on his tea. "Darling, you are more precious to me than anyone in the world." "Why are you asking?" "Well, I just wanted to hear you confess your love one more time." Masha smiled. Then she headed to the bathroom and had already turned on the water when she heard her husband's phone ringing. Masha leaned against the door. "It's all normal," she heard. "Don't call now, otherwise she's already suspected something. It's really strange. Or is this the medicine that's working? Okay, bye. Love." That's him talking to Nastya. Masha shook with anger, but she coped with her emotions. She climbed into the bathtub and lay there for a long time thinking about what to do next. The next step was to find that damn medicine. Either the medicine really worked, or Victor was tired. But when Masha got out of the bath, he was sleeping peacefully on their bed in the bedroom. Making sure that he was sleeping soundly, she carefully began to search his briefcase, then his things. In his jacket pocket, she felt a small bottle. It was the same strange medicine her husband had been poisoning her with for several days. "I tried it myself today." Masha smiled maliciously at her thoughts. There was no name on the bottle. At first, the woman wanted to simply pour the medicine down the sink, but then changed her mind. She carefully poured the contents into an old contact lens container, rinsed the bottle, and filled it with clean water. "Let him pour at least 100 drops now," Masha whispered, and put the bottle back in her jacket pocket, and then hid the container with the medicine further away in the sideboard. She also put the voice recorder there. These were proof of her husband's plans. Masha had not yet decided how to use it. Time would tell. Now, in the morning, she drank tea completely calmly, even if Victor poured it for her. Yes, he closely monitored her well-being, but nothing happened. Masha was calm, cheerful. You saw some concern in her husband's eyes, and even amused by it. At some point, she decided to play along. Once a cup fell from her, her hands fell and broke. "Fool chicken! Damn you!" she suddenly screamed. She picked up a shard of the cup and smashed it on the floor again. Small fragments fell. Victor was clearly stunned by such behavior. And at the same time, Masha did not slip away as he suddenly transformed. "Darling, it's just a cup. What's wrong with you?" he asked in surprise. "Exactly, just a cup," Masha exclaimed. "I'm tired of it all. All these dishes. You wash them, you scrub them, and they fall apart in an instant, the ungrateful one. Who's the cup? Victor snorted. Yes, and why are you laughing? Masha cried angrily. What are you saying, darling? What are you saying? I'm just asking, calm down. If you want to break something else, I'll go. I have to go to the editorial office. He kissed her on the cheek and practically skipped out of the apartment. It's working out, Masha noted to herself. He thinks his potion is finally starting to work. Yeah, no way. But just in case, so that her husband would be absolutely sure of his victory, she threw a couple of plates on the floor. It was a pity, but what can you do? Once she starts playing the show, she will play it to the end. Around lunchtime, the doorbell rang. Irina was standing on the threshold. Edwardovna. Hello, dear? The mother-in-law walked into the apartment and glanced briefly at the kitchen. Masha had already cleaned up the broken glass. Everywhere was in perfect order. The mother-in-law raised her eyebrows in surprise, but said nothing. Her daughter-in-law seemed fine, but her son had been telling her for a week that something was wrong with Masha. She was breaking dishes this morning and doesn't take care of herself. Now everything seems fine at first glance. So I decided to drop in on you, she said, taking her crying into the hallway. And rightly so, Masha smiled. I decided to bake a pie. An apple pie just like Vitya likes. Yes, that's good. Irina Edwardovna looked closely at her daughter-in-law. Masha, are you okay, sweetie? Yes, Masha answered without batting an eye. And why are you asking? He's been acting different lately, thoughtful. I don't understand. Maybe at work at the zoo? Masha shrugged. Everything's always a bit of a mess in the editorial office. Yes, that's for sure. You did the right thing when you left. One of the family members asked to be the normal one. The women burst into laughter. Then they made a pie together, chatted, and drank tea. Yes, their relationship had always been strained, but that day they had such a nice chat. Masha sensed something was wrong, but she couldn't figure it out. Could Irina Edwardovna really be involved in all this business with the medicine? No, she didn't seem like it. Could she really commit a crime? After all, she was a judge in the past, and there were stories about Viktor cheating on her with his best friend. No, Mashenka didn't believe that was possible. Irina Edwardovna might be a stranger, but she wasn't mean. And Viktor was the closest, and he hit so hard that even an enemy couldn't bear it. But Masha had to take the hit. It was too early to show all her cards. Mashenka, what were you thinking about? Svikroviev noticed that his daughter-in-law was staring at something. Oh, it's nothing, Masha dismissed. We need to start making some meat for Vitya soon. Right, it's already 4 o'clock. Well, we've had a good time together. Well, the mother-in-law left completely perplexed. And why had her son complained the day before that Masha seemed out of her mind? She was perfectly normal. And Masha faced another test that evening. Victor came home at 8 p.m. He kissed his wife, looked at her carefully, and asked how she was feeling. Masha was so disgusted to see him that she couldn't express it. It's very difficult to communicate with someone every day, knowing that they wish you ill, and to smile at them. My head hurts, Masha complained. I'm going to bed. Dinner's on the stove. Okay, Victor agreed contentedly. Go and rest. Masha lay in the bedroom, tossing and turning, thinking about how to throw all the accusations in Victor's face. Present evidence, and there was plenty of it. The voice recorder recording. Oh, the strange liquid in the lens container. The overheard conversation with Nastya. Throw out of the apartment, and that's it. But her heart thirsted for revenge. And Nastya, they had never seen each other again after all this. It was hard to look into the eyes of the woman she had trusted for so many years, as if it wasn't Nastya's fault, but Masha's. She was already dozing when the doorbell rang. Masha opened her eyes and listened. Muffled laughter and whispers could be heard in the hallway. She sat up in bed and listened. Why did you come? Victor said quietly. She might wake up. So what? A female voice said with a laugh. She's already half as much as you say. What difference does it make that I was just a figment of my imagination? I've missed you so much. And you're so stern at work, you don't even look at me. Darling, let's go to a nightclub and then to my place. Okay, right now, Victor agreed. He headed into the living room apparently to get the phone. Masha was also sitting on the bed, unable to move. She realized who was visiting. It was Nastya. Shamelessness had completely lost all fear. How much longer could she put up with this? Masha stood up abruptly and walked out of the bedroom. At that very moment, Victor, who had already returned to the hallway, was kissing Nastya. "Hi, friend," Masha said quietly, shaking slightly with rage. She was holding back with all her might from grabbing her rival's hair. "Masha!" Nastya peeked out from behind Victor's shoulder and smirked. "And they told me you were fast asleep." "You won't get it," Masha hissed furiously. "What a bastard you are. Anyone but you. And why not me?" Nastya smiled insolently. "I always liked Vitya. It was just a coincidence that he approached you first. But then he realized his mistake. Really, Vitya." "Girls, don't fight," Victor muttered in confusion. He was discouraged by this situation. Everything was spinning out of control. "Bastard!" Masha screamed. "Get the hell out of here!" "I'm not going anywhere," Victor suddenly declared. "I live here. I'm registered here." "And what is this my apartment for?" "Go away to your melancholy." Masha was furious that I should never see you or her again. No longer able to control herself, Masha threw the first thing that came to hand at him. It was a floor vase. The vase fell right at Victor's feet. "Vitenka," Nastya gasped. "You were right. She's gone completely crazy. We need to call a special team." "Call one for yourself," Masha exclaimed. "Get out of here, or I'll call the police now." "And what are you going to tell them?" Victor suddenly grinned. "Why are you attacking people? A friend came to visit, and you hit her with your fists. Right, Nastya?" She nodded eagerly. "The team will believe me faster. You've been seeing a psychiatrist for over a month now. He comes to us regularly and sees your deterioration," Victor declared brazenly. Masha's indignation took her breath away. "No one comes to see us. You see, you're already having memory lapses. Do you even remember that you broke all the dishes in the kitchen today?" "So it was the one with the nasty mustache," Masha guessed, ignoring her husband's question. "Yakov Nikolaevich is a very good and respected specialist in town. His diagnosis is trusted. So that's it. Go to the bedroom and calm down, or they'll take you to the hospital right now." Masha recoiled from her husband. His face was contorted with a mass of rage. And at that moment, fighting him was too much. Masha went into the bedroom to Nastya's delighted laughter, then slammed the door, and her husband and mistress left. Then Masha fell onto the bed and burst into tears. What good was it that she'd been collecting proof that her husband was plotting against her? It turns out he'd already announced her incapacitation to the whole world, and it was only a matter of time before she ended up in the hospital. After all, what was a recording of her on a tape recorder worth? It would be hard to prove who was speaking when and where. Perhaps these words were taken out of context from another conversation. The medicine. Where was the proof she didn't get it herself? And the phone conversation with her mistress was simply her imagination. Victor could spin everything so that her own words would be used against her. Masha was confused and crushed. Her happy life, all her plans and expectations had collapsed. Her husband would now act openly, and what to do about it Masha didn't know. And that night she had a dream. She was walking through an autumn park. Leaves crunched underfoot, the sun shone brightly, and her soul felt so warm and joyful, as if nothing terrible had ever happened to Eva in her life. Suddenly a huge dog, black and shaggy, ran up to Masha. Quiet joy gave way to panic. She couldn't move a leg or an arm. A scream froze in her throat. The dog didn't attack. It simply stood on the path and prevented Masha from passing. Finally, having come to her senses a little, the woman tried to step aside, but thorny bushes suddenly grew on both sides of the path. She looked back, and there was a girl running, a little one, barely 6 years old. She saw Masha and screamed, "Mom, don't be afraid, my friend is so kind." The girl ran up to Masha and held out her hands. The woman recoiled from the child. Mom, she doesn't have a daughter. Her baby is dead. The girl just shook her head, carefully walked around Masha, approached the dog, and petted it. "Let's go, my friend. No one loves us," the girl said loudly, and they walked along the path forward. A little girl and a huge black dog. Another moment, and they melted away like smoke. Masha wanted to run after her, but her feet seemed to have grown into the ground. Masha did not see her face, as if in a fog, and only a ringing voice was ringing in her ears. "Mom!" The woman even woke up from this scream. Her heart was pounding wildly. Sticky sweat appeared on her forehead. Her limbs seemed to have turned to stone. Masha sat up with difficulty. What kind of dream was this? Did she really dream of her own daughter? She never dreamed of her own daughter, did she? Yes. This year she would have been the same age as the girl from her dream. Why did she come to her? Masha asked herself this question 1,000 times and found no answer. "Oh my God, I'm really going crazy," Masha whispered. Masha took a deep breath and listened. Victor wasn't in the house, and that was good. Meeting her husband would be the hardest test for her right now. Oh, how to look at him, how to talk to him after what happened yesterday. And then her phone rang. An unknown number. Masha, after some hesitation, picked up. "Hello, Maria Sergeyevna." She heard an unfamiliar female voice on the phone. "Yes, it's me," Masha answered cautiously. "This is the orphanage calling. My name is Anna. I work as a teacher in a preschool group. I managed to get your number from the clinic you're assigned to." "And since when do they give out numbers there?" Masha was unpleasantly surprised. "And why are you calling me anyway?" "This is a long conversation and not over the phone," Anna answered. "Let's meet. I'll explain everything to you." "Okay, let's do it," Masha said doubtfully. Has Victor really made something up again? The woman thought, but immediately dismissed the thought. Maybe the orphanage found out she was a former photographer and decided to order a photo shoot from her for their charges as a donation. Masha decided not to guess. She'll meet and find out everything. They agreed to meet in the city center in a small cafe in a couple of hours. Entering the cafe, Masha froze. She immediately recognized the woman Victor had met in the park just over a week ago. She was holding a folded newspaper, just as she had said on the phone when Masha asked her how to recognize her. Masha's heart pounded anxiously. Had Victor really thought of something else? "Anna?" Masha approached the woman. The fair-haired, pretty woman raised her head and nodded cautiously. "Are you Maria?" "Yes, I'm listening," Masha replied. She sat down opposite and looked at the one she had considered a homewrecker a week ago. Now, of course, she understood that she had been mistaken then. But this conversation clearly didn't bode well for her. At least, that's what Masha felt and was prepared for the worst. She was compressed like a spring and could fight back at any second if this young lady made any accusations against her, talked about Victor. Let her take him and divide him with Nastya as she wanted. Over the past week, Masha's love for her husband had faded. She felt that she simply hated him fiercely. But first, clarify the question. Who gave you my phone number? As I said, they helped me at your clinic, but believe me, it was with the best of intentions. And don't be angry. Anna looked at Masha with her huge, blue eyes belittlingly. It's just that the situation has developed in such a way that I don't know who else to. I was in contact before with your husband. I tried to explain everything to him, but he probably didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. Gave 10,000, that's it? But that's very little. Stop. Masha raised her hand to stop her interlocutor. I don't understand anything. What, 10,000? And what's the situation? What? Anna gasped. He didn't tell you anything. You know, what was he supposed to tell me? Masha was starting to get angry. What kind of show is this young lady putting on in front of her? Masha, your daughter needs a serious operation. Otherwise, she could lose her sight forever. Barachka is on the waiting list for a free operation, but I'm afraid we could waste time. The doctors told us to look for sponsors. But where can we look for them? They're all only on TV. Everyone's so generous, but in reality. So I remembered that Vera has her own parents. I looked, found out, and it turns out that you live quite well. Why not help your own child? Masha was stunned listening to her. What is she even talking about? Aren't you ashamed? She finally said, and tears welled up in her eyes. Masha. Anna blinked rapidly. You are heartless and vile. How can you say such things? My daughter died in the maternity hospital 6 years ago. And now you're sitting here and talking to me about some child? Does this mean that I abandoned my own daughter? I buried her 6 years ago. Now Anna looked at her in amazement. Excuse me, your husband is Victor Stepanov, the editor of our city magazine, she said embarrassedly. Yes, this is my husband, Masha answered, raising her head, and then lowered it and covered her face with her hands. Our daughter died, born at 22 weeks. The doctors were unable to save her. The baby's heart stopped. If anything, I have a death certificate. What certificate, when I myself saw the statement of abandonment of the child signed by you? Anna blinked rapidly, not understanding anything. No, your girl is alive. Vera Stepanova. I started looking for last names. I thought she was abandoned. And then the head nurse said that her parents abandoned her because she was born extremely premature. They were supposedly afraid that the child would be disabled. I myself saw the documents about the child's abandonment. I didn't sign anything, Masha whispered. Does that mean my girl's alive? Alive, and nodded happily. And everything is fine with her. She recites poetry well. There is just one problem. She has already had 2 operations, but this is not it. Another operation is needed, and you won't get it for free. Verochka. He finally named her Verochka, as I asked. Masha grabbed her head. My God, did Victor really set all this up? What did he tell you when you told him about the child? He wasn't surprised she was alive, Anna said, choosing her words carefully. Rather, he was simply taken aback that the past had reappeared in his life. He only swore at me. How did I find out about him? His address. Why should I find out about him when he's a famous figure in our city? I called him the first time and asked to meet, but he refused. Then I told him everything over the phone. He promised to think about what he could do, and went. Only later did some philanthropist give sweets to the orphanage. Most likely your husband, I think. After a while, I called again, set up a meeting in the park, wanted to explain everything to him in person, give him a little test. But he came, shoved an envelope into my hands, and left. He said he'd helped as much as he could. When I opened the envelope, I was dumbfounded. Only 10,000, when the operation costs several million. I can't believe what's happening. My child is alive? How can this be? The doctor told me back then that she was dead. Vitya Irina Eduardovna cried with me. So it turns out she knew too. Or was it she who arranged it all? Masha said feverishly. Yes, I remember how she said we needed to write a waiver, and then that doctor? He said the child died, and the grave. Vitya even took me to the grave. I go there every year now. I put up flowers, take candles to the church for the repose of my daughter. She's alive. My God, how awful. If you don't believe me, I can show you the waiver documents. Anna took her phone out of her bag. I took a photo of the papers. There were signatures on them. She handed the phone to Masha. The woman literally stared at the images on the screen. Yes, without a doubt, those were their names. Victor's signature. Yes, that's how he signs. The signature hasn't changed at all over the years. But her signature isn't my signature, she said in amazement. Similar, but not mine. Not my handwriting. Now everything falls into place. You've been screwed. Anna looked sympathetically at Masha. I'm so sorry. To hell with it, Masha exclaimed. I'll deal with them later. Now I want to see my girl. Is that possible to arrange? I think so, Anna nodded. And so they were already on their way to the orphanage by taxi. Arriving there, they immediately went into the director's office. At first, Yulia Gennadievna greeted the unfamiliar young woman with hostility. I know you cuckoos, she declared. First they refuse, run away from their problems, and then they sit here in my office, shedding tears. Yes, Vera Stepanova is in our orphanage. Yes, the child has eye problems. And when you abandoned her, didn't you realize that premature babies often have serious illnesses? What do you want from me now? To show you the girl. I'll show her to you, but only from a distance. Do you want to help the child? Help, and I'll give you the details. But I won't let you have contact with the child. And you, Anna Nikolaevna, are no good either. You've been working here for less than a week, and already you're making such decisions on your own. Who asked you to tell the Stepanovs about your daughter? Well, I'll talk to you later. Wait, Masha stopped her angry speech. She did the right thing. After all these years, I was sure my girl was dead. She even has a grave. What nonsense. Yulia Gennadievna was confused. Is your daughter alive or not? Anna Nikolaevna, why have you confused everyone? Are these other Stepanovs? Yes, those same ones, Anna quietly objected. They simply lied to the woman. She didn't give up her daughter. And Masha haltingly recounted the events. So that's not your signature? Yulia Gennadievna looked incredulously at Vera's personal file, which she had finally pulled out of the safe. Not mine, Masha assured her. Then that's a different matter, but your husband, I don't know what you can call him. He's a bastard and a scoundrel, Masha said quietly. But I'll deal with him and everyone else who's in league with him later. Right now, I want to see my little girl, Verochka. The only thing I'm grateful to Victor for is that he at least named our daughter as I asked. Let's go to the playroom. The children are there now. Yulia Gennadievna stood up resolutely and headed for the hole. Masha hurried after her. There were about 20 children in the playroom, aged 3 to 6. Some were stacking blocks, others were drawing at the table. Boys were rolling cars, and one girl sat modestly in the corner, clutching a teddy bear to her chest. Masha looked at her, and her heart sank. How this little girl reminded her of herself as a child. Just as thin, with a slightly upturned nose, her wheat-colored hair neatly braided into a thick pigtail, and only Masha couldn't tell the color of her eyes, hidden by thick glasses. She can't see very well, the woman aghast. Her vision is rapidly deteriorating, Yulia Gennadievna sighed. But if surgery is performed in the next month or two, the myopia can be reversed. Ophthalmologists are giving a favorable prognosis. In this case, vision can be restored. Not 100%, of course, but still. There's also astigmatism, but all of that can be controlled with surgery. Can I come up to her? Masha whispered, her voice shaking. Can I? Just don't tell me who you really are yet. You understand that things are already tough for the girl. She has poor eyesight, which means she can't play normally with the other kids. She cries a lot, and now she's been through such a shock. Now, her mother appeared and then immediately left. You understand that I can't give her to you, right? I understand everything. Masha stepped toward the girl. Hello, Verochka. Masha squatted down next to the little one. My name is Aunt Masha. Hello, the girl said softly, and looked closely at the unfamiliar aunt. Are you our new teacher? No, I'm a photographer, Masha answered, swallowing a lump in her throat. I want to take your picture. Do you mind? Me? The girl was amazed. Yes, I do. She sobbed and fell silent. Honey, why are you upset? Masha was surprised and stroked the little girl's head, noticing how silky her hair was. And Vera's eyes were green, with a yellow fleck just like hers. Auntie, don't take my picture, Vera whispered. I'm not pretty. Who told you that? Masha sat down on the chair next to her and hugged the little girl. That's not true. Look at my glasses. All the kids are laughing, and even calling me names. But don't listen to them. You're the most beautiful. I just came today to choose the heroes for the photo shoot. And in a few days I'll be there with the camera. You and I will take such pictures, everyone will be envious. No need, the girl said plaintively. They will cry. You take the best picture of us all. Yes, you're right, I will do that. So we agreed. We will take pictures soon. We will. A boy standing nearby had clearly been eavesdropping on their conversation, and then started tugging at Masha's sleeve. Auntie, are you sure you're coming to see us? You're not lying? Absolutely, Masha smiled, trying to open her tears. I'll definitely come and take a picture of you all. The boy immediately ran off to tell everyone about the upcoming photo shoot. What happened then? All the kids greeted the news with delight, shouting and clapping. Masha patted Vera on the head again, smiled at her, and headed for the exit. What have you done? The headmistress scolded her. I told you to be quiet without making any noise. And you? I just want to give the children good emotions, Masha justified herself. To be honest, she made it up on the fly. But is it bad if you have high-quality photographs? Will you use them later for something? Okay, you've convinced me. And most importantly, show me the extract from Vera's diagnosis and tell me the amount, the details, and all that. I will try to resolve this issue as soon as possible. To be honest, Masha didn't yet know how she would resolve it. But she had a strong feeling that she would still do it right. The woman rode in a taxi and remembered the girl's face. Yes, this was her little one. No examination was needed here. And again, angry thoughts overwhelmed her. How could Victor do this to her? Although why was she surprised? After he tried to poison her with drugs, openly threatened her, after she heard his conversations with his mistress, and then she brazenly came to their house, nothing was surprising anymore. And his mother, she was clearly aware of Verochka's situation, and was most likely the one who initiated it. To the maternity hospital, she asked the driver to change the route. He glanced cautiously at Masha, but said nothing, only nodded in response. She even smiled, and then the smile immediately slid off her face. Yes, she would never go there again for the same reason. The other women were brought. So what? He had faith now. After all, and Masha would do everything to get her daughter back and definitely cure her. At the maternity hospital, she asked for a doctor named Kravchenko. She remembered that he was the head of the department back then. He was the one who broke the sad news to Masha, and his seal was on the documents that Anna showed. Dmitry Alexeyevich is in his office, they told her in the admissions department. Can I come in? No, of course not, the female medic exclaimed. We are not allowed to go to the hospital. Then call me Dmitry Alexeyevich, Masha demanded. It's urgent. Her tone forced the woman to comply, and soon the head doctor came downstairs. Masha thought he recognized her. He even turned slightly pale. Masha remembered him perfectly well, too. Yes, it was the same doctor who had told her about her daughter's cardiac arrest. Masha clutched the recorder in her bag, which, incidentally, she had brought with her. We need to talk, she said confidently. I see you recognize me. No, I don't know you. The doctor clearly lied. His hands were even shaking, so he hid them in the pockets of his robe. And I think if you strain your memory, you'll remember. A woman is on bed rest. 3 months gives birth at 22 weeks, and the baby supposedly dies. Masha said all this in a lowered voice, and then added louder. I can give more detail. I'll call security now. Dmitry Alexeyevich raised his voice. Okay, Masha almost whispered in response. And I'll call the police. Dmitry Alexeyevich, I just need to talk to you. I know that my daughter is alive. I saw the renunciation documents, but that's not the problem. I didn't renounce my daughter. Okay, let's go to my office. Just put on a robe and shoe covers, the doctor answered with a resigned sigh. In the office, he firmly closed the door behind Masha and pointed to a chair, sitting down opposite. I'm listening to you, he said dryly. I won't keep you long. I just need to know what really happened. 6 years ago, Masha quietly turned on the recorder. You remembered me, after all. Keep in mind that I saw the signature on the child renunciation form and I didn't sign those papers. I suggest you tell me everything, and I won't go to the police. I have other plans for how to deal with my husband." "Deal with him as much as you want," the doctor replied hoarsely. "But he wasn't the one who initiated that whole thing." "Irina Eduardovna?" "Yes. She is, understand, she's a former judge. The whole town knew her. She simply came to my office and said, 'If I don't do everything right, then tomorrow I'll have an inspection from the Ministry of Health at the maternity hospital, and I'll definitely be fired from my job.' So I drew up the waiver documents. Your husband signed them without even thinking. Irina Eduardovna wanted to slip them to you two, but then she had doubts. She knew you'd read them and make a fuss. She signed them herself. That's all. And then I came to you and told you that that girl had died. And you wrote a death certificate?" "I didn't write anything out." The doctor shook his gray head. "I have no such sin." "How could they not write it out when I have Vera's death certificate and the location of her grave?" "I don't know anything about it. And I think your mother-in-law could have already gotten the documents using her connections at the civil registry office." Masha rubbed her temples. She had been surrounded by deceitful people for so many years. She lived and suspected nothing. They looked her in the eye, but they would not have done anything if they had not been helped for money. Out of fear of losing their cushy position, simply out of a desire to please, "Thank you for telling me," Masha said coldly and rose from her seat. "And the girl?" The doctor called out to her at the door. "How is she?" "Well, she was discharged to the shelter. She was still weak and kind people nursed her back to health." She paused and added, "Not without your help, of course." "And for that I am grateful to you. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone about what you did." "Thank you." The doctor lowered his head. Masha left the hospital thinking about the doctor's words, about what she herself had said. How could she not give everything that had happened a second thought? There was one option, but for that she had to know all the details. From the maternity hospital, she went to another clinic. The thing is, on the way to the maternity hospital, she found information about that same doctor with a thin mustache and thinning hair. Now it was his turn. Yakov Nikolaevich is no longer seeing patients today, the pretty girl at the reception desk told her. "But is he still there?" Masha clarified. "Miss, I told you he's not seeing patients," the nurse repeated patiently. And then Masha noticed the same thin man who had recently stood over her and tried to take her pulse. "Yakov Nikolaevich, you're the one I need." She boldly stepped toward him. The recorder was still playing in her bag. "The appointment is only on Thursday," he answered casually, trying to pass by. "What do you mean Thursday?" Masha exclaimed. "But what should I do? The drops you gave my husband are gone?" Yakov Nikolaevich looked at her face and recoiled. Only now did he realize who he was talking to. "They recognized me," Masha hissed in his face. "Either we have a heart-to-heart talk now, or I'm going to the police. I know everything." "Okay," the doctor muttered. "Let's go to the office." "Oh, no," Masha laughed. "Definitely not going to your place. Let's do it outside. You have a secluded park there." They talked on a bench in the park. Masha explained to the doctor that she knew her husband's plans and that she heard everything when Yakov Nikolaevich was in their apartment. And most importantly, she had that very medicine and it wouldn't be difficult for her to have it tested and find out what kind of drug was in it. And then she could go to the police. "I just want to understand how he could so easily convince you to do this." "Yakov Nikolaevich, I read about you. Your patients speak well of you, and then this happens. You agreed to drive a healthy person crazy." "He forced me," Yakov Nikolaevich admitted. "The thing is, back when Victor worked for a tabloid newspaper, he uncovered an unpleasant case. We had a patient die in the hospital. He died on his own. No one helped him. He was being treated for addiction, but as it turned out, he didn't really want it. Friends were telling me all sorts of crap, and then one day he went crazy. But since he was on medication, his heart couldn't take it. We hushed it up, passing it off as a simple heart attack. The pathologist and anatomist did everything correctly. And then one of the nurses blabbed to Victor, and he found me. We had a nice chat and seemed to understand each other and parted ways peacefully. And just recently he reappeared and hinted that if I didn't help him sort things out with his wife, that is, with you, then things would be very bad for me. And I agreed. Of course, they were scared. How could it be otherwise? Yakov. I have a family. My son is studying at the university. I can't set them up. If everything comes out, I'll lose my job. That's the best case scenario. Masha chuckled. Okay, relax. I have no desire to expose you. My husband and I will solve everything ourselves. Just calm down, the doctor advised. I'll try. Masha chuckled again. Who else would have advised me, but not you? Forgive me, Yakov Nikolaevich exclaimed. I'm so ashamed. Honestly, I'm very glad. You're okay. Tell me, are you sure you didn't take that medicine? I probably did a few times thanks to Victor's care. But don't think I slept like a log because of it. I already understood that. You cheated, and you did the right thing. And the only advice I want to give you, yes, forgive me, another piece of advice from a confused doctor. Be careful with your husband. When he realizes his plan has failed, he'll come up with something else. I get it, he wants to get his hands on your apartment. I already know that, and I can assure you he won't succeed. Masha walked away from the park. On the one hand, she even felt sorry for the doctor. He really was confused, as he himself said. On the other hand, after talking to him, I wanted to take a shower. It's disgusting to talk to someone who does evil and then tries to justify it. Like I didn't do it on purpose. They made me do it. Dear friends, we've reached the most important moment in our heroine's life. If you support Masha in her fight for happiness, write the word love in the comments. Your activity helps the channel grow so we can share new heartfelt stories with you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel Dog Woman Stories Life so you don't miss the next installment. Listen to the finale of the story. Although, of course, it's too early to relax. Now Masha was on her way to her mother-in-law's. She wanted to look into the eyes of the woman who had deprived her of her child. Masha was sure that she had convinced Victor to sign the renunciation documents for her 6 years ago. Irina Eduardovna opened the door and was very surprised. What's wrong, Masha? It's already evening. Did you make dinner for Avitya before you went visiting? He'll cook it himself, Masha replied, and walked into the apartment. Irina Eduardovna was speechless for a second at such impudence and was ready to launch into an angry tirade on how to take care of her husband when Masha cut her off mid-sentence. I know everything, she said calmly. What do you know? The mother-in-law was surprised. That it was you who 6 years ago arranged everything so that my child was declared dead, and my girl is alive. Masha looked into her mother-in-law's eyes unwaveringly. What do you mean alive, Irina? There we go. Masha, that's impossible. We buried her. Darling, you must be tired. You must have imagined something. I spoke with the doctor at the maternity hospital, and I saw the documents about the refusal. About refusal? Do you hear? And you handed me a death certificate. How is that possible? Are you confused? The mother-in-law insisted. Then Masha showed her a photo of the waiver document with a signature similar to Masha's. You understand, of course, that it won't be difficult for me to prove that this signature isn't mine. And then the ball will begin to unravel. There will be a public outcry. Do you agree? A former judge went along with it. I think people will like it. Okay, maybe you agreed with Serena Eduardoman. What do you want? I want to know who's buried where I go every year. There's no one there. I simply paid the cemetery administration, and they allowed me to build a small grave there. And his death certificate was issued by my friend who works at the Legislative Assembly. I understand. Irina Eduardovna, there's one thing I can't understand. How could you do such a thing? She's your granddaughter. And didn't you even hesitate when you did all this and convinced Victor? Sure. Nobody tried to convince him, Irina Eduardovna said wearily. And if you want to know, he asked me about it himself. Masha, you understand, the child was weak, sick. Why should my son have such a burden? And You decided everything with him. I couldn't help but support my son, especially since he was right. Something could have come of such a child. Only a severely disabled one. A normal child turned out. And Veer is almost healthy. By the way, thank you for at least giving her a name, as I asked. It was Vitya who insisted. He got emotional. Irina Edwardovna waved her hand. Masha, I hope you won't air your quarrels in public. What happened, happened. You live well with Vitya, so live like that. Good, Masha chuckled. Are you sure? Your son is cheating on me. Didn't you know? I didn't. No. With my best friend, by the way? And he also wanted to put me in the hospital so he could take over my apartment. Oh, Mashenka, but that's definitely not true. Irina Eduardovna gasped and even turned pale. For her, all of this really was news. Unfortunately, it's true, Masha sighed. Well, I'll go, Irina Eduardovna. Mashenka, just calm down. Everything will be fine. Of course it will be. Only now you and your son need to try so that I don't report you. What do you want? A divorce. But I think now Vitya won't interfere with it. A divorce. But that's not enough. I need money. A lot of money. My daughter needs an operation. And even selling my apartment won't solve this problem. And where will I live with my daughter after this? Yes, I plan to take her from the shelter. Masha was silent for a moment, watching with pleasure how her mother-in-law turned pale. Your apartment will do a little, but at least it's something. Besides, Victor has savings. He wanted to take my place for himself? No, it won't work. And he will have to say goodbye to his savings. And yes, the most important thing is I will need the money within 2 weeks. Masha, how is that possible? How can I sell my apartment and live on what? You live on your salary too, Vitya? Not anymore. I intend to completely change my life. And your Vitya, and you too, if you don't want to go to jail, find the money. Funny, I need 17 million. Having said this, Masha left her mother-in-law's apartment, leaving her in a panic. Yes, Masha understood that now Irina Eduardovna would call her son, and they were already deciding how to answer Masha. But this was the least of her worries. She knew she was right. Masha decided to spend the night at a hotel. She was already in her room when Victor called her. He was furious. What are you doing? He shouted into the phone. She made up some nonsense about the child. Mom, are you scaring me? Are you completely out of your mind? You definitely need a hospital. And by the way, you're headed to jail. Greetings from Yakov Nikolaevich. He told me everything. How did you get him to work for him? She answered calmly. Masha asked him. What, Yakov Nikolaevich? Victor choked. You're definitely crazy. Let's go home quickly. And we'll talk here. Yeah, right now. Masha chuckled. I'll be home when you're not there. But before that, don't forget to pay me 17 million. That's exactly how much is needed for your daughter's treatment. Masha paused and then added, Vitya, I don't understand who you are, a man or an animal. Even animals don't treat their cubs like that. And you abandoned them to their fate. And even now, when they turn to you for help, what did you do? What did you do? You just gave them some kind of handout like a mockery. 10,000 when a huge sum is required. Why do I need this child? It was clear from the start that she is pathetic. I don't need a disabled child. I am the editor of a well-known publication, and in my family, who knows what. He decided to throw such a child out of his life. Well, and out of mine, too. Yes, I, your husband, have the right to decide. Oh, so that's how you spoke. Masha was indignant. And then you decided to quietly throw me out of your life. Is there anyone else? Chicken. Stupid chicken. Nastya, she is beautiful, smart, and cheerful, and definitely may not give birth to a healthy child. After her 5 miscarriages, Masha smirked. And what didn't she tell you? Well, no, that she can't have children. Oh, Vitya, you're upset. Well, you'll get over it somehow, I hope. Anyway, I've said it all. You owe her money for everything I've been through. No, not even me. The money is needed for your daughter's treatment. If you don't do this, I'll move on. You put me in jail, and you prove it. I'll prove it, if necessary. Masha answered him quietly and hung up. She lay there half the night thinking. It seemed like she had done everything right. She was very convincing. Victor won't get away with it now. But one thing worried her. If her husband was behaving so nakedly, maybe he wasn't taking Masha's words seriously. Yes, she would go to the police and tell everything. Perhaps they would open a case. But how long would that take him? And the money. She needed it urgently. Towards morning, a simple and easy solution to the whole problem came to her. Masha showed up at the publishing house at exactly 9 o'clock. Masha's husband's secretary was surprised. Are you going to see Victor? He hasn't arrived yet. How did you both end up in the same apartment? No, I'm going to see Vitaly Andreevich. Masha only answered and headed down the corridor. Although Vika was clearly in the mood, I wanted to chat, but I had no time for that right now. Vitaly Andreevich, the owner of the publishing house, happened to be there today. Masha called him at the crack of dawn, apologized for calling early, and asked for an audience. The owner agreed to hear her out. Vitaly Andreevich was about 50 years old. Not long ago, he had buried his wife, who had died of a serious illness. He took over the publishing house after the death of his father-in-law, and he was a good manager and a decent, fair man. Mashenka, Vitaly Andreevich smiled. I'm so glad to see you. Frankly, I was very surprised when you called me. What happened? Couldn't you sort this out with your husband? He's not the last person in the publishing house, either. That's the thing, he's the last one, Masha answered quietly. For many years, I didn't notice that I was living with a monster, and now I don't know what to do. And she began her story about her daughter, and about Victor's attempt to get her on drugs, and about the apartment where her husband planned to live with his mistress, her ex-girlfriend. As proof of this, she turned on the recorder. Vitaly Andreevich listened to what Victor was screaming, how doctors confess to their own crimes, how Irina Eduardovna justifies. Son, it's terrible. The owner of the publishing house shook his head. I can't believe I worked with such a person for so many years and didn't notice what he really is. Oh, what are you saying? She smiled sadly. Masha, I lived under the same roof with him and didn't notice anything. I loved him and trusted him. So Masha, we'll do it this way. I'll give the money for the girl's treatment from my personal funds. And don't argue. It will be like sponsorship, philanthropy. It's even beneficial to me as a businessman. But something needs to be done about Victor. It's clear that he won't work for me anymore. Masha, I suggest we file a police report against him and his mother. Let the doctors and everyone involved in all these crimes answer for it. Vitaly Andreevich, to be honest, I don't want any investigations. It would be enough for Victor to disappear from life, along with his mother. But you're probably right. We can't do without the police. Although I don't want all this fuss either, the owner supported her. After all, our publishing houses will be babbling on all channels, and that's bad publicity in this case. You know what? Leave me your recorder and wait for me until in the conference room. My secretary will call you. Masha left the owner's office. As she was entering the conference room, she saw Victor with Nastya. They were walking arm in arm, chatting cheerfully. Victor was clearly confident of his impunity. They also noticed Masha. Her husband was about to head towards her, but Svelana, Vitaly Andreevich's secretary, called out to him. But Nastya, tossing her head back, walked straight towards Masha, grinning at her former friend. And what kind of detective story did you come up with there? She chuckled as she entered the conference room. And you already know? Masha looked into her former friend's eyes. Of course, Vitya has no secrets from me. So you know my daughter is alive? I knew it, Nastya grinned wryly. I knew it from the very beginning. Masha cried. You knew and kept quiet. Why should I go against the man I loved? And why does he need a disabled child? So you're saying you've been sleeping with my husband for a long time? Masha, you're such a naive fool. I just want to cry with pity just looking at you. Nastya laughed. I slept with Victor for the first time even before you did. Then he chose you. I won't hide the fact that it was hurtful, but I pretended I didn't care. And then you ended up in the hospital with that stupid pregnancy. And yet he was a young, healthy man. So it all started all over again for us, and it hasn't stopped since then. A stupid pregnancy, you say? Masha said angrily. You scraped everything you had when you were young. Now you won't have any. Look who's talking, and what's better for you. You gave birth to some little frog, and now she's running around asserting her rights. You should shut up and be glad that Vitya didn't abandon you, but supported you all these years. My God, I was friends with this man for many years. Masha looked at Nastya in surprise. I can't believe you're like this. What kind of person? Nasty, spiteful, and vile. And I don't care what you think of me. Nastya proudly raised her head. I'll definitely be shining now. To hell with your apartment. We'll buy ourselves another one. We'll see about that. No, do you really think Vitya will give in to your threats? Nastya laughed and waved her hand. Goodbye, friend. And she cheerfully clicked her heels down the hallway. Masha remained in the conference room. She felt so bitter and hurt again. She trusted this Nastya for so many years, and she laughed at her. How could she trust anyone after that? Masha went to the door and peered out into the hallway. Victor practically ran into her. He was running so fast he didn't notice. He was flushed and disheveled. You! He said angrily, then stopped himself and ran down the corridor to the stairs. And Svetlana called out to Masha, Go see Vitaly Andreevich. No, Vitaly Andreevich was thoughtful. Masha silently nodded towards the chair. He was silent for a while, and then spoke. What Masha heard both pleased and frightened her. Having called Victor to him, Vitaly Andreevich immediately turned on the recorder. Victor listened, then tried to justify himself and denied it, but Vitaly Andreevich did not even listen to him. If you don't want to sit there, you have one way out, he said to Victor. You disappear from this city today, and yes, you can't rely on your savings. You will transfer them to your wife's account. You will go to the bank right now and do it. You can leave a very small amount for yourself. Don't worry, I will keep an eye on it. And one more thing. You will take yours from this city to Mother so that you and Masha could even breathe the same air. And if you try to cheat, I'll get you, mind you. I have serious connections. I can't compare with you. You can threaten an ordinary doctor, but I'll find people more influential and in power. They'll wipe you out. Victor understood everything. Of course, Vitaly Andreevich didn't tell Masha about his connections. He just hinted that he'd intimidated Victor, and he was genuinely scared. I don't understand. Masha was confused. What savings will he give me? Everything, Vitaly Andreevich smiled. Oh, thank you. Now I can probably pay for my daughter's operation myself. Maybe it's a little short. Don't even think about the operation. The owner waved his hands. I said I'll pay for it myself, so I will. Just give me the details and more. Isn't it time for you to return to the profession? I've been thinking about this for a long time. Masha blushed slightly. What is there to think about? Come back as a photojournalist. Why a photojournalist? We now have a vacancy for the editor of the magazine, and you can do photography in your free time. But Masha was so confused that she couldn't even find the right words. I have no experience with this kind of work. No? Then it will be. We have a good team. They will help. By the way, I already fired that Nastya. Now there are no rats on the team. Thank you, Vitaly Andreevich. I'll think about it. Think about it, the owner nodded. Just 5 minutes. The magazine won't wait. And he smiled at Masha. She smiled back. As she was walking to her new workplace, she met a tearful Nastya. She had already been told about her dismissal and that of Victor. She stopped for a second next to Masha. As if cursed, joked her former friend. And all the best to you, Masha answered with a smile, and went to her new office where they were already rolling up the sign of the former editor, Victor Stepanov. Stepanov, goodbye. Long live successfully. The girl is simple but a little stupid. No, Vika, Masha smiled at her. I will soon take back my maiden, Dravlava. And everyone who heard this nodded approvingly, because everyone had long known about the affair between Victor and Nastya and did not approve of it. They pitied Masha. Masha had done the right thing. Now that she'd settled into her new surroundings, she went to see Richa at the orphanage. The kids were just out for an evening walk. "Hello," Masha shouted, walking down the path toward the children and their teacher. "I came to take your picture." "Oh, will it work?" "Anna, it's getting dark, and I have a good flash. I just couldn't do it before, but I promised." "Where's Vera?" "I'm here," a timid voice said from behind her. Vera, it turned out, was in the gazebo when she heard the familiar voice of the kind aunt. True, she hadn't seen her very well, but she remembered the voice well. That evening, Masha took a ton of wonderful photos, group shots, portraits, and she mostly tried to photograph Vera. And the girl seemed to thaw. She just posed for the kind aunt, laughing. Just as Masha was leaving, the girl suddenly ran up to her and hugged her around the waist. "Baby, I have to go," Masha whispered sadly, leaning toward the girl. "But you'll come again, won't you?" Vera asked hopefully. "I definitely will," Masha promised. She so wanted to promise her daughter that she would soon take her away from here, but she was afraid to plant false hope in her little heart. What if they wouldn't let her adopt her? After all, everything was so complicated in her case, several times more so. And then Verochka was taken to a clinic in the capital, where the best surgeons helped the girl restore and preserve her sight. The little girl returned to her hometown with Masha. She had flown especially to pick up the girl, now legally. The month Vera was in the hospital, Masha was busy with various paperwork, getting a divorce from her husband and formalizing the adoption. The child protection authorities were surprisingly accommodating and didn't interfere with anything. Masha couldn't believe it would all be so easy and simple. She didn't know the first thing, but Andreevich put in a good word for her. It must be said that Vitaly Andreevich was seriously and firmly in trouble. He had fallen in love with Masha, but he was in no hurry to confess his feelings. He understood that the new editor had other things on his mind right now. After all, she had divorced her husband, and after such a betrayal. The age difference also bothered him. Masha was almost 20 years younger than him. How would she take this? Hearing a refusal was unbearably painful. A year passed. Masha skillfully managed the magazine. Surprisingly, everything was working out for her. Vera was already in first grade. The girl brought joy to her. There were no more health problems. Of course, Vera still for her glasses, but they weren't as complicated as before. And with age, the doctors assured her that her vision might even return to normal. And that year was filled with joy and happiness. The joy of motherhood. Masha simply enjoyed her new role and tried to make up for the time lost with her daughter. They were together every minute. "Mommy, are you going to disappear somewhere?" Vera would sometimes ask anxiously. Never, Masha would smile and hug her headstrong daughter tightly. Yes, now they were together forever. They planned to celebrate New Year's together. They decorated the Christmas tree. Masha set the table. Vera tried to cut out snowflakes with her. The doorbell rang. Masha opened it and was stunned. Santa Claus. And she hadn't ordered it. She was so busy running around she missed this moment. Where from? Who? "Hello," the New Year's wizard said with a beer. "Here I am." "Oh, Grandfather Frost!" Vera cried, seeing the guest. "I've been waiting for you so long." "I knew it," Grandfather Frost laughed. "Will you recite a poem for me?" "Of course." And Vera eagerly began to recite. And Masha stood and watched. This bearded fellow in the red robe reminded her of someone. And then when Vera ran into the room with a huge doll in her hands, Masha finally decided to ask, "Grandfather Frost, aren't you my boss by any chance?" "Oh, you've caught yourself," Vitaly Andreevich chuckled, pushing back his beard a little. "What, did you recognize him right away?" "I couldn't recognize him at all. I could only guess from his eyes." "Happy New Year, Masha." "Happy New Year, Vitaly Andreevich." They stood and looked at each other. The young woman in a kitchen apron and the fairy tale character with a huge white beard. The silence dragged on. "Well, I guess I'll go," Vitaly Andreevich said timidly, and then came to his senses and reached into his bag. "Masha, this is for you." He fished out a small red box. Masha opened it and blinked her eyelashes in surprise. A diamond ring?
Oh, it's so expensive.
Why? She babbled. Mashenka, you are more precious than all the diamonds in the world, Vitaly Andreevich said quietly. Vitaly, I can't accept it. No, this is a New Year's gift from Father Frost himself. The guest smiled. And suddenly, unexpectedly for himself, he pulled Masha to him and kissed her. She answered him. Unexpected, Masha whispered. This is my first kiss with Father Frost. Didn't he freeze me? No, it's like I thawed out, Masha admitted. Vitaly, I realized a long time ago that you are dear to me. You have done so much for us. I think about you all the time. Stay. Let's celebrate the new year together. I had no hope. Masha, I swear to you, you will never talk about this. You'll regret it. And they stood there hugging, and Vera looked at them from the room in surprise. Mom, kissing Father Frost. Is that even possible? Then Father Frost magically disappeared, and Uncle Vitaly appeared in the apartment, whom the girls soon began timidly calling Daddy. And at this time, far away from this city, another family was celebrating the new year, a son and an elderly mother. She had recently had a stroke, and now she could barely cope, and everything irritated her. And this uncomfortable apartment, and the drinking son, and the strange city to which they had to move. Yes, these were Irina Eduardovna and Viktor. Now they lived far away in Siberia. It was here that they had to move after Viktor's conversation with Vitaly Andreevich. The former boss did not advise anywhere closer. Neither son nor mother wanted to go to prison, so they agreed. Viktor worked for some small newspaper. Irina Eduardovna was sick. They argued, remembering their past lives. Did they regret the past? No, they simply felt sorry for themselves and scolded Masha, and also Nastya, who had also disappeared into thin air in the vastness of a big country. But they didn't even think about their granddaughter and daughter. She was, and remained, a stranger to them. In fact, Verochka didn't even know about their existence. She now had a real, loving family. Dear friends, thank you for listening to this story to the end. And now, I have a small favor to ask of you. Help me make the channel better. Write just a few words in the comments. What city are you from? How old are you? And what stories you enjoy listening to most on our channel. It could be a story about betrayal and infidelity, about strong women, about late love, about mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law, about a second chance in life, or about family secrets. Your answers help me understand what stories to share with you next. And I'd also like to know what you're up to today, what your current situation is. I wish you a pleasant weather outside. I always enjoy reading your comments and mentally travel with you to different cities and countries. Thank you to everyone who takes a few minutes to reply. This text was read by Vitaly. Channel Women's Stories from Life. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you in new stories.